This episode is brought to you by the monthly wine subscription service Bright Cellars. Stick around until the end to learn about a special offer for all History Dose viewers. The same year, for our sins, unknown tribes came. God alone knows who they are and whence they came. The armored soldiers grow weary as they hunt the strange forces that first gave them battle 1 week ago. It had been refugees from the steppe who first warned of the invaders, beseeched the quarreling princes of the Kievan Rus to raise their armies together against a great godless horde. Now, at the banks of the Kalka River, holding aloft their proud banners, the Rus catch sight of the enemy. These Mongols have just reduced the mighty Islamic Kwharazmian Empire to burning heaps of corpses and chased its wretched king into the Caspian Sea. They've come north under commanders Subutai and Jebe to scout and make war in uncharted lands. A young Kievan Rus prince called Danilo leads his men across the river. In a rash charge through clouds of arrows, Danilo breaks through and slays several Mongols. One enemy pierces his chest and allies ride to the aid of Danilo, but Mongol horse archers outflank them. The Mongols chase the exhausted Rus into scattered retreat and massacre thousands. Riding back through silver fields of Rus corpses, the Mongols return east and nothing more is heard from them. Danilo and other surviving princes are left to return to their thrones. Their presence in these remote European lands has been revealed not to nameless wild tribes, but to the most powerful man in the world. The Mongols now undertake the long journey back to the court of Genghis Khan. The Kievan Rus was founded in the 9th century and once stood strong and united at Europe's eastern edge. As centuries passed, potent principalities rose within its borders. Clans and aristocrats fomented rivalries, and the trade routes ran dry. The power of the Kievan Rus was thus fractured and divided amongst lesser princes, just as liable to raise an army against one another than against the knights and hordes beyond their borders. With great effort, some attempted to restore the Federation to the glory of its golden age. Roman the Great unified several regions and became master of all Western Rus, ruling principally in the land called Ukraine. But he was slain in battle. His son, Danilo, lays claim to the lands ruled by his father, but rules only a portion of it, the western region of Halych-Volhynia. In 1237, 14 years after the Battle of the Kalka, terror reaches the eastern stretches of the Kievan Rus. The Mongol horde arrives, demanding the surrender of the city of Ryazan. The people refuse and vigorously cut down the first Mongol attacks, but soon are overwhelmed. The Ryazan prince perishes with his city, and it's later written that there was none left to groan and cry. Although Genghis Khan died in 1227, his son Ojeda has succeeded him and ordered the conquest of the Kievan Rus. The grandson of Genghis, Batu, leads the invasion, accompanied by the top princes and generals of the empire, including the dreaded Subutai. They ravage the old principalities in a western push, massacring civilians, and then ride south to sack Crimea. Mancha Khan and his forces ride under ashen sky in 1239. Beyond the path, domes rise pointed like closed flowers, peaked by simple crosses, and below the peasants stir in their creaking hovels, and carts and cattle lumber through the streets. Taken aback by the distant splendor of the capital, Kyiv, Mancha Khan expresses his wish to spare the city should its people submit without resistance. The Grand Prince of Kyiv, Mikhail of Chernihiv, rebuffs his proposal and flees, and Mancha Khan leads his Mongols away to campaign or rest elsewhere. A year passes. Danilo will install his vassal Dimitro to rule the city, and the rivers turn to ice and the rattle of the horde reaches the gates of Kyiv. Batu Khan pitched camp outside the city while his men besieged it, and one could not hear anything as a result of the great din caused by his screeching carts, countless bleeding camels, and neighing herds of horses. And the land of Rus became filled with soldiers. Chinese engineers push forward advanced siege weapons and splinter the timber walls of Kyiv. Stones hurtle from the sky and bury towers and homes and people. After a few days, the invaders breach the walls. Kyivans rush to meet them on the ramparts. Killing the first zealous invaders, the Mongols overtake them and soon ride rampant through the burning streets. Civilians retreat to the Church of the Tithes. Behind their desperate fortifications, they cloister around a radiant altar. And with the Mongols at the doors, the frantic Kyivans rush onto the strained balconies. And the church collapses, crushing hundreds within. The last vestiges of the Kievan Rus have fallen, and the lands to the west are now exposed. The Mongols under Batu and Subutai will press into Central Europe. Poles, Hungarians, Germans, and the Knights Templar will ride out to stop them and be scattered in the fray. Prince Danilo, meanwhile, receives word that his wife and children have survived the Mongol invasion and fled to Poland. In a tearful reunion, he locates them by a river called Polka, then informs them that it's not safe for them to remain there. He later departs to survey his own fallen cities. Danilo came with his brother to Berestia, but could not go out into the field because of the stink coming from the countless decaying dead. In all of Vladimir, not one person remained alive. The Church of the Blessed Virgin was filled with corpses, as were other churches. Mongol conquest has not ended regional conflicts. Danilo and other princes maintain alliances and feuds, and clash with Poles and Lithuanians in the borderlands. But the Mongols keep a watchful eye on those who threaten their authority. Defeated princes and governors must ask Batu Khan to confirm their rulership in their former lands, that they may rule as vassals of the Mongols, henceforth required to offer tribute to the Khan in the form of taxes, soldiers, and laborers. Mikhail of Chernihiv comes to the court of Batu Khan in 1246. He bows in respect to the conqueror, but refuses Batu's demand to bow to Mongol icons and honor the dead Genghis Khan. We bow down to you and pay you homage, but we will not worship in the faith of your ancestors. We will not obey this order of yours, which is blasphemy in the eyes of God. Batu grows furious and orders Mikhail and his grandson stabbed to death. Mikhail of Chernihiv is martyred and in time attains sainthood. Long hunted by the forces of Batu Khan, Prince Danilo is also summoned. He seeks the solemn wisdom and prayer of monks before answering the call. Batu and Danilo negotiate an exchange of military prisoners, and Batu offers Danilo a cup of mare's milk. Danilo confessed that he had not yet tried it, but would drink it if he wished, to which Batu replied that Danilo was already one of them, a Mongol, and should therefore drink their beverage. Danilo, however, seeks only to undermine the Mongols. In the coming years, he fosters good relations with the kingdoms of Poland and Hungary, and cultivates the support of allies in the West. He implores Pope Innocent IV to bring Roman authority to his lands, and mobilize a crusade against the Mongols. Although Danilo receives only the papal gift of a title and a crown, King of Ruthenia, he and his sons and his brother will muster an army to reclaim their lands. They ride from town to town over the winter of 1254, sparing civilians but shattering the yoke of Mongol rule wherever they visit. The gallant campaign of Danilo has begun to cast out Mongol loyalists among the Rus and provokes the wrath of the Mongol horde. Mongol General Khwarezmia readies an army sworn to crush this insurrection, and they move to take the city of Vladimir in 1257. Long have the people of the city sought retribution for the loss of their kin, those the Mongols left rotting in the halls of sacred churches. And taking up their shields, the men of Vladimir fly out of the gates in a horseless onslaught. On the amber fields, they drive their spears through their enemies, and with their swords wildly slay them. The Mongols scatter and flee. King Danilo's forces gallop out and hunt down more Mongols, but Khwarezmia then decides to punish the defenseless city of Luk. He arrives at a frigid and roaring river. The people of Luck suddenly rush out and cut down the bridge before them. Keremza abandons the siege and departs to the steppe with his troops. While the victorious King Danilo plans to retake Kyiv, the Mongols return in greater numbers under more capable leadership, offering the cruel promise of total annihilation should the cities refuse to submit. The Mongols order the destruction of Danilo's fortifications. King Danilo seeks refuge, and his brother Vasilko is forced to accept their terms. The military campaign against the Mongols has ended, but King Danilo will return. And over the years he will rebuild and expand beyond the lands once ruled by his father. Although vassals of the Mongol Empire, King Danilo of Halych-Volhynia and his Ukrainian, Hungarian, Polish, and other subjects maintain under Mongol rule some flourishing measure of independence, an untamable defiance which survives even Danilo, who dies in 1264. The Mongols foresaw the great trouble of conquering and holding these lands, for Ogedai Khan had long ago been warned by his brother Chagatai. There, at the end of the world, they are hard people. They are people who, when they become angry, would rather die by their own swords. I've found that a long day of study is best concluded with a glass of fine wine, and thanks to today's sponsor, Bright Cellars, all History Dose viewers will get a customized selection of 6 wines for 50% off. That's 6 bottles for just $55, including shipping. Bright Cellars makes it incredibly simple. It's a monthly wine membership that uses a 7-question quiz to match you with wines based on your tastes. Once I finished the quiz, it automatically curated a selection of 6 wines and I was good to go. I didn't need to run to the store and scour the aisles for something I liked. It came right to my door. And it's a lot of fun unboxing your matches. They're sourced from hundreds of vineyards all around the world, and you get wine education cards for each bottle with information about how to store each one, what food you can serve them with, and where they're from. I started with an Italian red, Ladro d'Uva. It has this wonderful but smooth taste. I'm also super excited to host some dinners and open up the Dreamlit and Obscura wines I received. So if you'd like to support History Dose, follow the link below to take the quiz and get started today.